The internet is full of strange and terrifying encounters, but some stories stick with you long after you've read them. These are the kind of stories that make your skin crawl, the ones that end with the chilling thought, never again. Tonight, we're diving into real-life horror from Reddit's Let's Not Meet, where people share the moments that changed their lives forever. Imagine walking home late at night, the streets quiet except for the sound of your footsteps. You know the way. You've walked this path 100 times before, but tonight feels different. The air is heavy, the shadows stretch longer than usual, and there's a strange feeling creeping up your spine. Then, out of the corner of your eye, you see something or someone, just far enough away that you can't make out the details. But they're watching, and they're following. Or maybe it's the friendly stranger at the grocery store who seems a little too interested in your plans. They ask simple questions at first, where you live if you're alone, but their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. You laugh it off, but later that night, you hear a knock at your door. You weren't expecting anyone, and when you look through the peephole, your heart stops. These are just glimpses of what's ahead, stories of near misses, of gut instincts that saved lives, of encounters with people who weren't just strange, but dangerous. Some of these people walked away unharmed, but others, they'll never forget what happened. Turn off the lights, check your surroundings, and settle in, because once you hear these stories, you might never look at the world the same way again. The thing about fear is that it doesn't always hit you all at once. Sometimes it starts as a nagging feeling, something small, something you tell yourself you're overreacting to. And then, before you know it, that feeling turns into a reality you can't escape. Take Mia, for example. She had just moved into a new apartment, a small but cozy place on the edge of town. The rent was cheap, the neighbors seemed friendly, and for the first few weeks, everything felt normal. Until one night. She was lying in bed, half asleep, when she heard it, a soft, deliberate knock at her window. Her apartment was on the third floor. At first, she froze, her heart pounding so loudly she thought whoever was outside might hear it. Slowly, she turned her head, staring at the darkened glass, but she couldn't see anything. The knocking stopped. Maybe it was her imagination, she thought. Maybe she had dreamt it. But then, the next morning, she found something that made her blood run cold, smudged fingerprints on the outside of the glass. Meanwhile, across the city, Ryan was dealing with something just as unsettling. He worked late shifts at a diner, often walking home after midnight. He was used to the quiet streets, the empty sidewalks, the way the streetlights flickered at the worst times. But one night, he got the feeling that someone was walking just a few steps behind him. He turned around. Nothing. Just an empty sidewalk. He shook it off and kept going, but the feeling didn't go away. In fact, it got worse. When he reached his apartment building, he used his key to get inside, shutting the heavy door behind him. Safe. Or so he thought. Just before he turned to head upstairs, he glanced back through the glass door. That's when he saw him. A man standing just outside, watching. His face was hidden in the shadows, but Ryan could feel his stare. And the worst part? The man wasn't surprised that Ryan had spotted him. He didn't move away. He just stood there, waiting. These stories aren't about ghosts or the supernatural. They're about real people. People who had a gut feeling that something was wrong, and sometimes that feeling is the only thing that keeps you safe. Mia couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been outside her window. She started double-checking the locks, keeping the curtains drawn, but the unease never left. Then, one night, she found a note slipped under her door. No name, no explanation. Just 3 words. I found you. Meanwhile, Ryan tried to convince himself the man at the door was just some random stranger, but deep down, he knew better. A few days later, he spotted the same figure across the street, half hidden behind a bus stop. Was it a coincidence? Or was someone watching his every move, waiting for the right moment? Mia's hands trembled as she held the note. The words felt like a whisper in the dark, a reminder that someone had been watching, waiting. She tried to tell herself it was just a prank, but deep down she knew better. That night she pushed a chair against the door, her phone clutched in her hand, barely closing her eyes. Every sound, every creak in the floorboards sent her heart racing. Then, just past 2 a.m., she heard it again. A slow, deliberate knock, not on the door, but on the window. Across town, Ryan felt like he was being followed everywhere. The man at the bus stop kept appearing, always just far enough away to make Ryan question if he was imagining it. But one night after another late shift, Ryan stepped out of the diner and stopped cold. The man was there, standing beneath a flickering streetlight. This time he didn't just watch. He took a step forward, and then another. Ryan's pulse pounded as he turned and walked in the opposite direction, his pace quickening. He didn't want to run. He didn't want to let the fear take over. But when he heard footsteps behind him, matching his own, the panic set in. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she crept toward the window, her body tense. The knocking had stopped, but she knew someone was there. Slowly she reached for the curtain, heart hammering. But before she could move it, her phone buzzed with a new message. No name, just another set of words that sent a chill down her spine. "Why won't you open the door?" Ryan reached his apartment and fumbled with his keys. But when he turned back, the man was gone. Or so he thought. Mia's fingers hovered over her phone screen, her breath shaky. The message wasn't just unsettling. It was impossible. No one should have known she was awake, standing at the window, hesitating to look outside. Her apartment was secure. She had locked every door, checked every latch. And yet, whoever sent that text knew exactly what she was doing. She backed away from the curtain, pulse pounding in her ears. Maybe if she stayed quiet, whoever it was would think she wasn't home. But before she could take another step, her phone buzzed again. "I can hear you breathing." Across town, Ryan stood frozen in his apartment doorway. His eyes scanned the empty street below, searching for any sign of movement. The man had been right there just seconds ago. And now, nothing. The silence was worse than the presence. He forced himself to step inside, bolting the door behind him. But as he turned toward his living room, his stomach dropped. His window was open. Ryan knew he hadn't left it that way. He hadn't even touched it in days. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Had he forgotten to close it? Had he left it unlocked? But then something caught his eye. A small piece of folded paper sat on his coffee table. He swallowed hard before reaching for it. The handwriting was jagged, rushed. 3 words. "You were right." Mia's hands were shaking as she dialed 911, her mind screaming at her to leave, to run. But before the call could go through, a new sound stopped her cold. Not a knock, not a message. A quiet, deliberate creak, coming from inside her apartment. Ryan's entire body tensed as he heard the floorboard behind him groan under the weight of something, or someone. He turned slowly, every nerve in his body on high alert. The apartment was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the walls. He could see his reflection in the TV screen. But he wasn't alone. For both Mia and Ryan, the terrifying truth was setting in. The danger wasn't just outside, it had already found a way in. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she turned toward the sound. The apartment was dark, the only light coming from the glow of her phone screen. She strained to listen, heart hammering in her chest. Another creak. Closer this time. Someone was inside. She wanted to run, but her body wouldn't move. Slowly, she reached for the closest thing she could use as a weapon, a heavy glass vase on the counter. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then, out of the darkness, a shadow moved. A figure. Mia swung the vase with everything she had. It shattered on impact, and a low grunt followed as the intruder stumbled back. She didn't wait. She bolted for the door, fumbling with the lock, her hands shaking. Meanwhile, Ryan turned to face his worst fear. His apartment wasn't empty. He could feel the presence behind him, the weight of unseen eyes. He forced himself to stay calm, to think. The note on the table. You were right. Right about what? That he was being watched. That whoever had been following him had finally decided to step inside. Then, movement. A dark figure lurked near the hallway, barely visible in the dim light. Ryan took a slow step back, reaching for the nearest object, a kitchen knife left out from dinner. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it did something worse. It laughed, a low, knowing chuckle that sent a shiver down Ryan's spine. Mia yanked her door open just as footsteps thundered behind her. She barely made it into the hallway before she heard something slam against the door she had just escaped from. Her feet pounded against the floor as she ran, gasping for breath, her only thought, get out, get help. Ryan lunged forward, slashing the knife through the air. The figure moved fast, too fast. The apartment lights flickered for a brief second, and in that moment, Ryan saw something he hadn't expected. The man wasn't a stranger. He had seen him before, in the reflection of store windows, lurking just out of sight. But now, face to face, the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. The man looked exactly like him. Same face, same eyes. The shadow he had been running from wasn't a stranger at all. It was him, or at least something that wanted to be. Mia didn't stop running. Her legs burned, her chest ached, but she pushed forward, throwing glances over her shoulder. The hallway stretched endlessly, each shadow warping into something sinister. She reached the stairwell and stumbled down, gripping the railing to keep herself from falling. The lobby was empty, too empty. She sprinted toward the glass doors, expecting resistance, but they swung open easily. Cold air hit her like a shock, and suddenly she was outside, surrounded by street lights and distant car horns, safe, or at least safer than before. Ryan's mind reeled as he stared at the figure before him, his own face twisted into something almost, but not quite, human. It watched him with an expression he couldn't understand, something between amusement and hunger. Ryan's grip tightened around the knife, but the figure only tilted its head, as if studying him. Then it took a slow step forward. Panic surged through him. He didn't understand what he was seeing. Was he losing his mind? A trick of the dim light? No, this was real. Too real. The air in the apartment felt wrong, thick and heavy, like a storm was about to break. The figure took another step, and suddenly Ryan knew. Whatever it was, it had been waiting, watching, and now it wanted to take his place. Mia gasped for air, dialing her phone with trembling fingers. The police. She needed the police. But when she looked up at the apartment building, her stomach dropped. Her window, third floor, left side, the curtains had been pulled open, and someone stood there, looking down at her. Not the intruder. Her. The same clothes, the same hair, a perfect copy of herself, and it was smiling. Ryan made his move. He lunged forward, knife in hand, but the figure didn't flinch. Instead, it whispered, "Too late." The lights flickered again. Darkness swallowed the room for a split second, and when it returned, Ryan was alone. No sign of the figure. No proof it had ever been there. But the note on the table remained. You were right. Mia backed away from the building, her heart pounding. She didn't know what she had just seen. She didn't want to know. But one thing was clear. Whatever had been watching her wasn't gone. And somehow, deep down, she knew it never would be.